was talking about, you know, being the risk taker and feeling that angst maybe about where you're going to go. How did you explain that to your board, and how did you convince them that it was really okay, that it was going to take longer to get to where you were hoping to get to than what actually happened? Because I know that's a common concern that we all have, is sometimes people want immediate reward expectations.
I guess probably even greater than the fear of the risk is the fear of not taking the risk. You know, we were looking at student performance data that frankly was a burning platform. It's like, you got to jump off of this thing, and you better jump in a good direction. You better figure out which direction you want to go, because you're jumping. And so I think the board understood that, and I think, you know, we were able to provide good rationale for the initiatives that we were embarking on early on. And a lot of those were based on pockets of success that we'd seen in our history. And so, you know, we had that, and then I think it was pretty easy to make the board appreciate the need for a common vision and the power that could have. As far as the extra time it took, they didn't seem to have a problem with that. I think one thing we've learned the hard way 2 or 3 times now with the board is that we live and breathe this stuff every day. We talk about it all the time. They come together every month or so with a few communications in between. They have other lives. They live. And so our perception of where we are versus their perception of where we are can become disjointed. And we have to be very careful about that. And we have to assume that they're not ready to make decisions sometimes when we think it's time and we're ready. And when that happens, it's our fault for not keeping them informed and appreciating where their perspective is. So that's definitely a lesson learned there.
And how did you use, I know you were talking about the fact that you had 27 sites, and kind of every site was doing their own thing. And so bringing that communication back together so that you had the data to really back up what made you believe this to be true to get you to where you really are now?
Well, the 2 key pieces of data to me were just generally student performance data, and probably that audit, the instructional audit from the State Department of Ed, that they pretty much viewed things through that audit process as not what's on paper, because we had a beautiful curriculum on paper that was locked to the standards and everything, but as you went from classroom to classroom, was there evidence that the instruction was locked into the standards and adhered to the standards? And what they found was generally not so much. Pockets of excellence, but not so much. And so from there, it's, well, there's further evidence of our issue with fidelity and common vision and some of those things. Certainly the student data, you know, if you recognize we needed to do something. So. And I don't know, were there other data sources that?
You already referred to the one data source that we looked at, and that was the tie-in with the student achievement with our school climate and connectedness surveys. And the AASB had done some good work in training our principals and our advisory school boards with understanding the connection between the academic results and school climate. So we have, I believe, it's 4 years now of longitudinal school climate data that has played a pretty heavy role into the connectedness within our communities. So one of the underlying elements that's in our operational framework is the school connectedness, teacher-student relationships, but school and community relationships. And as that comes together, we see some of the data already in terms of student discipline kinds of data that we're measuring in terms of suspensions and expulsions and, you know, those kind of things. Truancies. So we anticipate that those are lead indicators of some major improvements in our academic performance data. So we're excited to see what we see this spring.